The lecture hall of the Galactic Institute hummed with the soft chittering and warbling of 200 alien students. Professor Zilthar, a distinguished Valerian scholar with crystalline skin that refracted the ambient light into rainbow patterns, stood before the holographic display showing various extinct species from across the galaxy, and so Zilthar's translator rendered his melodious voice into standard galactic common. We arrive at the most fascinating category of evolutionary dead-ends, the Deathworld species. The hologram shifted to show a collection of terrifying creatures from various high-gravity hostile planets. These species evolved on worlds so brutal, so unforgiving, that they developed extreme survival mechanisms. Unfortunately, such specialization inevitably led to their extinction once they attempted space colonization. In the third row, tucked between a gelatinous Quarian and a four-armed Zenth, sat Madison Cooper and Jake Morrison, the only two humans in a class of 200. Madison, a petite brunette with sharp green eyes, exchanged a glance with Jake, a tall, broad-shouldered guy with an easy smile that currently showed the first signs of tension. Take, for example, the Krynith from Sector 8, Zilthar continued, pulling up an image of a massive, armored creature. Their world had 3 times standard gravity, toxic atmosphere, and predators at every evolutionary level. The Krynith developed incredible resilience, but their aggression and inability to adapt to peaceful cooperation doomed them. They went extinct approximately 50,000 cycles ago. Madison's hand twitched. Jake noticed and put a subtle hand on her armrest, shaking his head slightly. Not yet. The pattern repeats across all known Deathworld species, the professor continued, clearly warming to his subject. The Varaxians, the Thorkel, the mythical Terrans all evolved in hellish conditions, all developed formidable capabilities, and all failed to survive the transition to galactic civilization. Jake's jaw clenched. Madison's hand shot up. Professor Zilthar HFY Stories swiveled toward her. Yes, Student Cooper. A question. Madison stood, her voice calm but carrying across the lecture hall. Professor, I think there might be an error in your data. A ripple of surprised chirps and whistles moved through the alien students. Challenging a professor during lecture was highly irregular. An error. Zilthar's crystalline features somehow conveyed amusement. I assure you, Student Cooper, the Xenoanthropology department's research is quite thorough. I'm sure it is, Madison replied, her tone respectful but firm. But you mentioned Terran humans as an extinct Deathworld species. I'm literally right here. The lecture hall fell silent. 200 alien eyes, stalks, sensors, and optical organs focused on the small human female standing in the third row. Professor Zilthar's colors shifted toward confused purple. Aye, that's impossible. Terror Earth, as it was locally known, was confirmed as a Class 12 Deathworld. No species from such a planet has ever successfully integrated into galactic society. Jake stood up beside Madison, his considerable height drawing gasps from several nearby students who hadn't quite grasped the size of the human male. Professor, humans have been part of the galactic community for 15 years now. We have 3 embassy worlds and over 10,000 citizens in space. The professor's colors cycled rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and what might have been embarrassment. This cannot be correct. The records clearly state. Maybe you should update your records, Madison interrupted, pulling out her Earth 1.0 standard gravity, which I'll note is higher than the 0.7 average of most galactic core worlds. Atmosphere, 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, which is apparently highly corrosive and toxic to most species. Native megafauna included creatures weighing up to 200 tons, countless apex predators, and that's before we even get into the microscopic threats. A Quarian student near the front made a gurgling sound of distress. You survived on a world with oxygen atmosphere. That's a chemical we breathe it, Jake said with a shrug. Kind of need it, actually. And the gravity? A Zenthi student asked, all 4 arms gesturing in agitation. How do you function in 1.0 standard? Madison smiled. That is our standard. This station, she gestured around the lecture hall, which operated at 0.7 gravity. This feels light to us. We have to do extra exercise or our bones deteriorate. Professor Zilthar had pulled up his datapad, his colors shifting rapidly as he scrolled through information. By the ancients... You're correct, but this makes no sense. According to all established xenanthropological theory, Deathworld species cannot adapt to cooperative galactic civilization. The very traits that allow survival on such worlds, aggression, territoriality, paranoia, make integration impossible. Or, Madison said, her voice taking on a sharp edge, Maybe your theory is based on incomplete data and assumptions. Jake picked up the thread. Humans aren't naturally aggressive, Professor. We're naturally adaptive. Yeah. Earth was brutal still is in a lot of places. But that didn't make us monsters. It made us survivors. More importantly, it made us cooperators. Impossible, Zilthar whispered, but his conviction was wavering. You think we survived Earth alone? Madison asked. We're pack animals, Professor. Social creatures. We survived because we learned to work together, to communicate, to form bonds across genetic lines. We domesticated other species. We built civilizations not despite our Deathworld origin, but because of it. A Valerian student near the back spoke up, her voice trembling. But, you're so fragile. I saw student Morrison bump into a doorframe last week. He was bleeding. Yeah, Jake laughed, touching his forehead where a small scar remained. Heads are weird like that, lots of blood vessels near the surface. Stopped bleeding in like 2 minutes, though. 2 minutes. Several students chorused in horror. You can survive open wounds for minutes. The Quarian gurgled. Madison grinned. Oh, that's nothing. Humans have survived having metal rods impaled through their skulls, having entire limbs severed, going days without water, weeks without food. We've got this weird thing called adrenaline that basically turns us into temporary superhumans when we're threatened. A lecture hall erupted in shocked whistles and chirps. Professor Zilthar held up a crystalline hand for silence. His colors had settled into a deep, contemplative blue. I believe I owe you an apology, students Cooper and Morrison. And it appears I owe the xenanthropology community a significant research paper. He paused, his eye stalks focusing on both humans. Perhaps you would consent to being interviewed. It seems we have much to learn about humanity. Jake and Madison exchanged glances and nodded. Sure, Madison said, sitting back down. But first, maybe you should correct your lecture. We're not extinct, we're just getting started. As Professor Zilthar stammered and began pulling up corrected data, a Zenthi student leaned toward Madison, all four arms trembling slightly. Student Cooper, is it true that your planet has creatures that kill for sport? Not for food or territory, but just for enjoyment? Madison thought of cats, and orcas, and humans throughout history. Yea, she admitted. Welcome to Earth. We're all a little scary there. The Zenthi made a sound like a whimper and slid lower in its seat in the front of the room. Professor Zilthar's colors had shifted to a resigned orange. Class dismissed early today. I have significant revisions to make to the curriculum. As the aliens filed out, giving the two humans a wide berth mixed with newfound respect and fear, Jake turned to Madison. Think we scared them? Madison grinned. Nah, we educated them. There's a difference. Deathworld species, Jake mused. I kind of like the sound of that. Extinct Deathworld species, Madison corrected with a laugh. Except we're very much alive. And in a galaxy that had never seen a species quite like humanity before, that fact was becoming impossible to ignore.